This morning, minority in parliament alleges Bank of Ghana is policy insolvent amid gold reserve sell-off and demands urgent bailouts.
We were supposed to see maybe reduce.
When you deduct the 16 billion from the 12 billion, you will be in negative 4 billion. Negative 4 billion puts the Bank of Ghana in policy insolvency.
Also, government records 7th straight undersubscription in weekly T-bill auction amid a shortfall of 571 million cedis. Plus, Professor Bokpin observes Ghana's service sector fuels 6% economic growth, but employment lags behind.
We were supposed to see maybe reduced growth, but we saw growth at 6%, right? But that growth is not job rich, because it's growth that is more than 50% driven by service sector.
We've got details for you. We'll bring you all our headline story shortly. Please stay with us. The minority in parliament says a financial crisis is unfolding at the Bank of Ghana. As new reports indicate, the central bank has become policy insolvent for the first time in the nation's history. According to its 2025 audited financial statements, the Bank of Ghana recorded a net operating loss of 15.63 billion cedis for the year, ending December 31, 2025, a 65% increase from the 9.49 billion cedis loss in 2024. Total negative equity widened to 93.82 billion cedis, primarily driven by high costs from open market operations and debt restructuring. At a media briefing on May 3, Kojo Nkrumah pointed to recent government policies and a controversial sale of national gold reserves as the primary drivers of this fiscal instability.
This policy insolvency is as a result of new policies that they have introduced at the bank. The implication of this is that the bank now requires an urgent bailout before it can perform its core mandate. Today, we just want to expose this sad fact, which the government is trying to hide from the Ghanaian people, that on the watch of the NDC, for the first time in our history, the Bank of Ghana has become policy insolvent. The net gain from the sale of refined gold at 9.5 billion Ghana cedis. To arrive at that 22 billion, they had to sell about 50% of our gold assets to generate 9.5 billion cedis so that they could arrive at 22 billion. The reason is that around October 2025, they realized that they were in the negative. So to cover this up, they employed some clever accounting by hurriedly, and that's why you recall that when we kept asking why was this gold sold hurriedly in the last about 2 months of the year, they couldn't explain, only to say that this year 2026 they were going to start accumulating new gold reserves. It was to generate artificial revenue of 9.5 billion. Now if you take that 9.5 billion out of the other incomes, you will come to 12.7 billion. And now when you deduct the 16 billion from the 12 billion, you will be in negative 4 billion. Negative 4 billion puts the Bank of Ghana in policy insolvency.
Government of Ghana struggles to meet its domestic borrowing targets continued on April 30, 2026, as the weekly Treasury bill auction recorded its 7th consecutive undersubscription of the year. The shortfall amounted to 571.21 million cedis. There's more in the following 3 Business News Desk reports.
Despite a target of 5.009 billion cedis, the auction saw a cooling of investor appetite. Total bids tendered by investors amounted to 4.884 billion cedis, of which government accepted 4.437 billion cedis. The 91-day bill saw investors offering 1.894 billion cedis, with government accepting 1.889 billion cedis at a yield of 4.92%. For the 182-day bill, all 764.25 million cedis in bids were accepted at an interest rate of 6.97%. The 364-day bill's bid totaled 1.829 billion cedis, while government took 1.784 billion cedis at a yield of 10.19%. The subscription rate was 97.51%, while the undersubscription rate was 2.49%. The persistent undersubscription suggests that, while interest rates remain relatively low, investors may be holding back in anticipation of higher yields or shifting their focus toward other investment vehicles as the 2026 fiscal year progresses. Total shortfall was 571.21 million cedis, meaning while the bid gap was only 124.64 million cedis, government ultimately accepted 571.21 million cedis, less than its original 5.009 billion cedis target.
Recent economic data reveals that Ghana's economy has achieved a robust growth rate of 6%. However, Professor of Finance at the University of Ghana Business School, Godfred Bokpin, is raising concerns that this expansion is not translating into a significant increase in jobs, highlighting a disconnect in the country's employment growth relationship, a trend noted as one of the weakest in West Africa.
When we talk about the fundamentals of the economy, we are talking about development with respect to the real sector, which they track. So the question is, we've seen some kind of growth. How do we strengthen the employment growth relationship? Because the employment growth relationship is the weakest in West Africa. Ours is the weakest. Okay, and it's simply because we are targeting wholesale growth, we are not intentional. So even when we have done all this tight monetary policy and fiscal, we were supposed to see maybe reduced growth, but we saw growth at 6%, right? But that growth is not job rich, because it's growth that is more than 50% driven by service sector, by ICT. Okay, so if you look at the economy broadly, the economy hasn't grown in terms of growth that will also deliver what? Jobs. I heard a narrative somewhere where someone said that the economy has created over 1 million jobs. If you look at the former wage economy, the economy has added just around 139,000. Right? Okay. So those are the things that we need to work.
Professor Godfred Bokpin is a professor of finance at the University of Ghana Business School. While Ghana's economy shows signs of recovery through improved inflation and positive macroeconomic indicators, the Association of Ghana Industries is sounding the alarm on the need for long-term sustainability and meaningful job creation. The current economic structure, which has remained largely unchanged for years, is being criticized for its inability to deliver steady. Chief Executive Officer of AGI, Seth Trum, argues that the nation must move beyond the recovery stage toward consolidation and ultimately a total structural transformation.
The question of sustainability, I think that is the most important point now. At this stage, we've had improvement in inflation, we have some good macros. How do we sustain this? And the sustainability, and then it links to the job creation that we are talking about. How do you sustain it and create jobs? Beyond the recovery stage, you need to consolidate, and then you need to have transformation. I think what we are lacking in our system now is transformation of our Ghanaian economy. If you look at it, the structure of the Ghanaian economy hasn't changed much for all these years. Industry, manufacturing contribution to GDP has basically remained the same around 11. It's virtually flat. But where you have higher productivity to increase job creation is in manufacturing and then agriculture. Agriculture is value addition. So we need to look at all these nuances. We are currently still exporting a lot of the raw materials. Gold has come in to help. The gold exports is helping, but as we speak now, we are not refining much. Therefore, if you are talking of sustainable jobs, to create jobs on a regular basis, then transformation becomes very important.
We'll now take a look at how the cedi is faring against major trading currencies and how some of key commodities are also faring on the global market.
On the interbank foreign exchange market, the dollar is selling at 11 cedis 19 pence worse. It recorded no change. The British pound is selling at 15 cedis 20 pence worse. It's gained 9 pence worse. The euro is selling at 13 cedis 13 pence worse. It also gained 4 pence worse. However, be guided that these figures could be higher at a Forex Bureau name. On the global commodities market, Brent crude is trading at $108.17 per barrel. Gold is trading at $4,614.21 per ounce, down by $3.64. Cocoa is trading at $3,596 per ton, up by $27.
That'll be all for the business news here on Sunrise. For more business stories, please check out our website, 3news.com. I am Christabel Success Treve. Sunrise continues. Johnny Hughes, Mawena Edbeta is standing by. Don't go away.